Welcome back to the Audible Angle. We are really fired up and excited to recap the Packers Bears playoff game. We'll be very animated and excited discussing it. But we do have to keep it positive here, folks. A little shout out to Ann Karen for being a loyal listener. Ann Karen knows who she is. Always listening, giving positive feedback, pumping it up. We always like the in-person feedback, but feel free to leave comments, do subscribe, do all that kind of stuff. I'll have to say, it's come to my attention there is 43,000 Packer podcasts out there. And just to clarify, Audible Angle is not a Packers only podcast. So stick with us even after this episode and through the rest of the year. Many listeners know we cover a wide range of topics and will continue to do so. But I noticed, there's a lot of hyperbole out there, a lot of wild takes, and me and Herbs are committed to very calm, reasonable discussion on the Green Bay Packers. And to start us off with this extremely reasonable and measured conversation, I'm going to put Irby on the spot here. And I warned you, Irby, in the one text production meeting that this question was coming. The first thing I want to hear, as a Packer fan, positives from Saturday night.
I think it's and I know that you obviously enjoy challenging your co-host here, which challenge taken. I had about 2.5 hours since you threw that out at me to kind of come up with some positivity here, and I think as far as Saturday night, I'm going to take the role of what's next for the Packers, and there are a lot of positives to take away from the season. Quite frankly, I think what we showed in the post Parsons era, if you will, this season is that there's a bunch of serviceable guys on this team. We certainly have holes. And we'll get to the holes on the episode, but I think there's a lot overall, Dilly, to be happy about. And I will tell you that the quarterback play should be the biggest positive that we take out of Saturday night and then moving into the next season, the 26-27 season. Jordan Love was all of it on Saturday night. I mean, he was everything that we expected, probably a little bit more. He can make all the throws. There's a quiet confidence to Jordan Love, and it's probably been there since college. It certainly probably is something that is rubbed off from the guy that's playing quarterback tonight, A-Raj. So I think that we're in real good hands for a number of years. The Green Bay Packers hit on the third straight quarterback, in my opinion, barring any major injuries. Now, there has to be that asterisk, and boy, does Packer Nation know the results that can happen after major injuries. But the first positive, Dilly, is our quarterback play in Jordan Love. Jordan Love is the real deal. He's something you can build a franchise and a very successful franchise around. And the second positive that I do want to look at, we're very strong in a great position right now with our wide receiver core. And the wide receiving core anchored at this point right now, and I'm going to leave one name out and I'll circle back to it, Dilly, and I'm going to try to keep this quick to give you a chance too to go to the positives, but specifically our wide receiving core with Watson, with Reed, with Golden, and Dontavian Wicks, all of which who are under control for next year. And I purposely left out Romeo Doubs. And the reason that I did is not because I'm not a big fan of Romeo Doubs. I absolutely am. In a different situation, in a few years back, we would have definitely restructured or put him under contract again for another 2 or 3 years, maybe 4. But I think the way we have in our wide receiving core and in that room, I think we're so good that we actually can let him walk and save that money and it goes to someone else. Now, we still have to take care of business in-house. I think Watson was only extended. He's got 1 year remaining, so we want to probably extend him. We've got to look at Jaden Reed's. That's going to be coming up soon. Dontavian Wicks is probably, I believe he's the same year as Reed, maybe 1 year older, as a matter of fact. So, and then with Golden, I mean, he showed a flash. That touchdown that he had on that bubble screen was definitely 110% him. he rolled over guys. That was almost the second coming of Donald Driver, if you remember him, kind of doing the same stuff in that same end zone. But he was throwing guys around. But that was a tough catch. He made all the catches that he needed to do. But boy, that wide receiving core, and quite frankly, I'm going to take it one further. We definitely lost one of the best tight ends in the league when Tucker Kraft went down, Dilly. And we won't talk a lot in this little bit with the positives about our injuries. I'm sure we'll get to that yet today. But what I want to focus on is Musgrave showed me a little bit more than what I expected. I mean, Musgrave had a definite tough 3 quarters of the season. And after Kraft went down, his drops, and that's going to be a challenge. But Musgrave showed flashes in the last 4 games that I can really be happy about. And quite frankly, on Saturday night, he didn't shine, but he was there and he was making the right routes. So everything that we have that builds off our number one positive is that's Jordan Love. And then the guys that he can throw to is only going to get better. Golden is going to be more of a part of the offense in the next season and the next 3 seasons to come. I think Christian Watson is a bona fide one. I would rather us not ever say that we have a number one on our wide receiving core because I liked having 6, 7 wide receivers that we're throwing to. We're in good hands, Dilly, long term. There's some question marks. We'll get there. But for positivity reasons, we have to look at the things that can move the needle, and that's our skilled players. And that's quarterback number 1, wide receiver number 2, and tight ends number 3. So I'll give you 3 reasons for positivity there. I think there's more, and I hope you can hit on those. But what are your positive notes?
Well, I mean, to be perfectly honest, I'm a little shocked that you came up with so many and so fluently, and a little caught off guard that they're essentially the same as mine. The main reason that I was excited to ask that question, maybe some people that are hate watching will be holding their breath for the negativity portion, but I was excited to see that from Golden, and that play from a playmaking play by Golden. Like you said, he's all year. People like to bitch. I don't think a lot of fans sometimes are the ones that go negative everything. And some of the ones I'm talking about are in real life, just negative everything people, um, or they don't understand how athletics at the top level work. Golden had been successful in every time he got the ball, basically. Every time they asked him to do something, he caught the ball, but this was the first one where he really made something. He really made a play that was above and beyond just good. That was a great play. So I was excited to see that, and that's an extremely little thing in a game that we lost, but it also came in a after some real doom and gloom in the third quarter. That gave us a spark to try to be in it. Um, and as you were talking, I didn't know if you're going to get there, but Musgrave actually, this was probably one of his best games. Back to his rookie year, like he had a big catch in the Dallas game, but even that one looked wonky. He kind of stumbled in on a long pass, but he actually looked like he was going to catch the ball, turn up field, and advance the ball. I know we've been kind of hard on him, but he might be a guy that just, he can't just sit down there and get 2 catches a game, or 1 target a game. He maybe needs to be in a groove a little bit. Jordan Love, obvious one. I'm trying to find one without repeating. The and Quay Walker and Edgerrin Cooper, they were pretty good this game, for the most part, especially in the first half. It's exciting to see those guys playing well. Let's move on since we had the same positives. We can jump quickly, and we want to limit it a little bit to this game. And I have a big one that I maybe I'll start on the negatives. Let's get into the negatives. And if it's football, you can't go one player, you can't go one exact thing. And I don't think this one is stealing your thunder. I'll start with one, and then you can do one. And we'll come back and forth in case we miss any. But Rasheed Walker almost single-handedly wrecked the offense for an entire quarter. And the thing that's amazing about some of it was, well, he's always been a little streaky. I'm and I don't say this in a mean way, he's gonna get a contract. He might get a pretty good contract because he's serviceable, but he's had when he is off, he's, like, way off, and I don't know what that is, but, he had a play, the Bears had what any normal football viewer would view as 4 rushers evenly spread out, so he's left tackle, there's a guy out wide of him, the defender to his right in a three-point stance is an inside shade on the guard. The ball is snapped. He moves abruptly. It's as if he thought we're all sliding right, like there's a heavy blitz on the other side, which there was not. There's only 4 rushers. Nobody was showing blitz. He didn't knock Banks over, but he steps right like this, and Booker, I think it was Booker, comes flying off the edge. I don't think he actually got a sack, but blew up the play, and that ruined that I think believe that was the first one. It gets kind of hard to keep track of them all. There was another one where Love tucked the ball and ran up the middle. I believe that was in the first half, and somebody chipped Booker, and then Booker just kind of stood there like this watching for the Bears defensive end. He's kind of standing there, and then so Walker just kind of stands there, and he's standing a foot and a half away from him. He doesn't do a punch. He doesn't put his hands on him at all. It's like they were just kind of both agreed not to do anything. And then Love made his move and Booker flew and crushed him. And Walker was still kind of standing there because, he's a big left tackle guy. The defensive end is going to be faster, but it was just weird. Like a whole beat happened where he kind of did nothing. And they're just like, he was in a stance, like, all right, he's right there. I'll react to him, and then he was gone and put a big hit on the quarterback. So, Rasheed Walker is my number one negative, and frankly, he's lucky. I mean, some of the other offensive line play is lucky that he was that bad because the rest of them could use a little heat as well.
Yeah, I agree. That's a good start, Dilly, and I appreciate that insight because a lot of people that watch the game, and I know a few, but not a lot of fans watch the game on the line level. It's easy to watch the ball. It's harder to not watch the ball, and I appreciate your look in there for the general public because it's easy. It's hard. It's easy to overlook those errors. And quite frankly, I've got another error when it bounces back to me. Another guy on the line that I kind of want to talk about, but I'm going to take maybe the low lying fruit here, and I'm going to talk about why it's bad. But I'm also going to throw in there why it's not as bad as maybe it looks. And why I call it a low-lying fruit is the guy that missed 3 kicks, McManus. I
Oh,
think
yeah.
he's another
Yeah.
that and the reason I say that it's low-lying fruit, Dilly, is obvious because it's easy to kick. I mean, it's one dude, right? He's kicking and he misses 3 kicks, and we're talking about there's 7 points left on the board. It's unacceptable. McManus won't be on the team next year, should not be on the team, and well deserved. He's going to land somewhere, and he'll probably be successful in maybe a warmer climate. I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. I still don't think he was ever right after his quad injury. I think that was a psychological thing. Let's face it, kickers are an interesting and rare breed by themselves. And when they have a hangnail on their right pinky finger, they're not going to kick well that day for whatever reason. Or they had the wrong French fries before the game. I don't know what it is, but it wasn't good. But here's why I'm going to tell you, Dilly, that and I must be in a good mood. So let's kind of keep that rolling because my bombshell is still yet to come here. But the missed field goals, I'm going to say it's not as big a deal as you think. Okay. And why I want to say that, yes, did we lose by a bunch? But let's be honest, that first kick right before half that he missed was 55 yards. Why it makes it hard for us to swallow that is because we literally watched him make the same kick 13 seconds before he missed the kick. But let's
Yes.
be honest. 55 yards for McManus is at the fringe of his distance, especially in the cold, especially in the wind, especially in a hostile environment. So the expectations would have been way different. And obviously if we win this, we're still going to be talking about the kicker and the trouble we have going into the next game. but we'd have to ride or die with him anyway. But I'll be honest, I didn't expect him to make that 55. And the reason that he pulled it was because he thought he had to give it a little bit more. That's a psychological move. I don't know exactly what kickers think, but that was a pulled kick because he thinks he had to give it a little more, even though he just made it. He may have. There is a thing, Dilly. Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, and he made it with what looked like plenty of leg, even though the kick was kinda it was a little weird, the practice one that he made, but it didn't look like he was trying to kick it out of the stadium. It was like a nice
But
it
here
was in range for him. It was in range.
I agree, but here I've got to tell we're both golfers. We're both golfers. And I know I played at a high level of soccer, and you can kick a ball and you know you nutted it. You just feel the ball pops off your foot and you know you got it. Okay? The same way you're in the driver and it doesn't you got it and you know that that was a perfect swing. Everything came together. So I think that there was a little bit of that. That first kick, he's like, "Ooh, I got it, but I don't always get it." And those kickers know that. They can feel like I got that one as much as I got. That's all I got. That's a perfect kick. So the next kick, he tries to give it a little more, which when you and I are in a scramble and you try to overswing something, you're going to miss it. That's just what happens. So I'm gonna let's just we don't know what was in his mind. We don't exactly know that. That's just premise. But I'm gonna tell you that that 55-yard miss wasn't as bad. Now that the wide right 44-yarder that probably should be in every single time. You get frustrated watching the rest of the games, so that's a miss. Let's be frank, Dilly. The extra point miss, I saw an extra point missed in the game following that our game. There was a missed there was a missed field goal in yesterday's game or an extra point. It happens and it happens way more often and the reason that that was moved back years back was for that. Here's the deal. We lost the game because of those missed kicks, but I don't think it's as bad. But because of those missed kicks and then the culmination of the entire season, McManus won't be back in a Packers uniform, and it should be that way.
Yeah, I thought it was also one when I did not plan on talking kickers all night, but, because I even forgot that when I was thinking of the negatives. Um, the old jog it off he did the weird it was clearly a 30-second freeze the kicker timeout, and he jogged off like he was gonna do another couple practice kicks, and then it was like, no, I'll jog back on." Like, it was just a weird like he was hey, it worked, freeze the kicker worked, so we thought that stopped working 10 years ago, but apparently it helped because he looked a little uncertain on what he was doing. Um, I'd say my next negative, and I mean, we should have talked. This is proof we didn't talk about this because our next topic is some theoreticals about the coaching staff, and so it's like, do we get into coaches now and coaching decisions now? I will say that um, we're trying to limit it to this game, but the cornerback play it's just not good enough, and you know it's it's hard. It's hard to pinpoint it every time, but there was a number of plays where guys, miscommunicated. They let guys go free, and they let guys go free in both Bears games. So, a little hat tip to the Bears offensive, coordinator and head coach. Can't remember his name, but, the guy that does the offense in Chicago. He's little hat tip to that guy. I think he former Lions coordinator, I think. In any case, he fooled him a little bit here and there, but at some point, you get into that fine line where it's yeah, it's a communication thing. Halfley's our defensive coordinator. Is that him not coaching the guys up and stuff? But we're talking. It's the 18th game of the season, guys. It's not like they invented a new coverage this week to figure it out. Hey, here's a brand new coverage. We've never practiced it except this week. Nobody's ever heard of it, and we're going to try to execute it. It's none of that stuff. So I think it's a hard look and you've been on it a lot, and all year long on Nixon and Valentine and Diggs played one play. Hey, and whoever else is in there, but it's just not enough, and we can, maybe we'll get into why that is. I've got some concerns because it's been a couple years that we've been concerned about the corners. Who's your shocker? What's your shocking negativity?
Well, I'm not gonna go on the next easy one because I think that's gonna kind of go into our next topic after that. But my next one, Dilly, and I'm gonna use my novice understanding of the game of football from the years that I've watched it. And when I say that, feel free to correct me here if I'm wrong, but I believe I'm not. So my negative here is 100% on our center, Ryan. And I believe that part of the second half failures, and maybe a large part of this, okay, maybe more than most of the regular viewer of the game would think, is the blitz calls and the changing of where the line would go or shift, or where the line doesn't go or shift, is on that center. And it is prudent and important for him to do that in real time. It's got to be quick, it's got to be decisive, and you have to keep your head on it. One of the smartest guys on the offensive line has always been the center, and I do see that center pointing, and I see him calling. I don't know what he's saying, but I know he's calling out coverages, or blocking schemes. And what I think that was one of the biggest changes and errors, because maybe, and this will go to my last point. I have another negative after this, and I'm sure you have a few more as well. But is I think Ryan let us down on those calls. And maybe it's because he wasn't that good as it was when he's filling in for Jenkins, who shouldn't have been in the position anyway. And quite frankly, maybe that goes all the way to Goody, that he allowed us to lose Myers and just should have paid him the money, because that's an important position. And we thought we had two guys that were serviceable. We clearly see that we don't. Center was an error, and that put more pressure and didn't allow. We got beat badly on the offensive line. Granted, Tom wasn't there, and that does make a difference. But there, as far as the center goes, I mean, because here's the deal, Dilly. Tom may have been making his own blocking scheme calls over there. If he's good enough to know, if this blitz is coming here, I know where to go. And there were guys that were just running wide open because we obviously didn't call the right blocking scheme. So I'm going to throw Ryan in there as being an error in a really dark spot. Now we've got two guys on the line, and we probably could talk Banks. We could probably talk Belton. We could probably talk other guys as well. But I think Ryan is my main point.
We just a real quick bounce back to positives, but we did this a couple weeks ago. As far as offensive line goes, just another game of anonymous Morgan for the most part. Didn't even really, he didn't stand out as bad, and there wasn't that much to stand out as good as. So, again, little hat tip to Morgan. You bring up a good point, and I'll try not to go on too long here, but in you know, stepping back from my Rashid Walker comments, he's been starting for a long time. He should probably figure it out. But there's something to be said for, if there's uncertainty or unclarity, yeah, lack of
In
clarity from the center's protection calls, and it's usually the center. Maybe a guy like Walker, he needs a strong, decisive center. It can't be one thing. Nope, nope, nope. And then he switches it, and there can't be uncertainty there. And maybe that didn't do Walker any favors. Now, and normally I would do a lot of caveats and saying, hey, we don't know what the line called. We don't know what protection scheme was. But when just one guy moves in a way that's the opposite of everybody else, you can be pretty sure that was on him. But you're right. It could have been on him because there was a wrong call and then a corrected call by the center. And if you're out there the furthest away of the tackles and you get the first call and then it's corrected, but you're already doing other things. And, not every player, he might need a strong center. Walker might succeed with a strong center, but it is like you said, too, with it goes with the cornerbacks, and we might as well just start talking about the whole season long. I was trying to keep it to this game, but yes, you're right. The decision, and I didn't think Meyer was that great. So it would have been maybe keep Meyer, and we don't know. Maybe he got paid too much. I think he got a new contract though. Like the team extended him that he's on, but either that or you bring in another veteran center who's a center instead of taking Jenkins away from being a very good guard and make him a center that's trying to remember how to play center, even though he had done it in the past here and there. And then you have another guard who's not really a center is the next center. Um, and what I want to bridge that to is you often hear, you Jeff Saturdays of the world, the top centers of the world, veterans. They're not only helping out the fellow linemen, they're helping out the quarterback. And I hadn't given this a lot of thought, but some of this timing stuff where we always feel like even when things are going great, you're always like 3, 2, 1, snap at 1 second left. Maybe the whole center situation put more on Jordan Love, where he's because the quarterback, I think, has final say on the protection call because they're standing up, they can see the best. But if you have a center that is knows what they're doing and is 99.9% correct, the quarterback's just confirming the call, the protection call. And it can change it if the defense moves around. But just a normal procedure, which is a thing I think we'll be discussing all the way through next August, but procedurally, it might have hindered the cleanliness with which the team operated because Jordan didn't trust the he was taking too much on protection calls before he got into his own reading of the pre-snap defense and all of that. And I wouldn't be shocked if that contributed to a timeout wasted over the course of a year.
Yeah, and I don't think that this is Packer agnostic either. You look at Ragnow with the Lions and him not having him in the center position. I believe Ragnow was a center out there. I think that could also been some of their challenges on offense as well, and maybe too much on that quarterback. So I think that that's a trickle down that I wish that in people always talk about, man, centers get too much, they get paid too much. Myers is going to ask for too much. Pay the sucker, pay him. Pay him. We know the difference that it can make. It's just a frustrating look when guys are running free and it's just a mistake because we double team a guy with a free runner to the left, and Banks was going over there because that was the protection call. He was going that way because of that, and then he can't get back. He's not athletic enough. So anyway.
Yeah, it's I'm not saying one is worse than the other, because that's hard to, you get your feelings hurt either way as a fan. But it wasn't like we were watching our offensive linemen just get physically destroyed, with like Myles Garrett makes some guys look funny. The Bears, Booker and all his pressure, he wasn't really even making Rasheed Walker, he wasn't defeating him physically on a continuous basis. It was just like a total whiff of Rooney. And then it's like, is that that does lead into coaching in our what if scenarios. So, do you want to move into the what if scenarios, or do you want to just do a State of the Union address on Matt LaFleur first?
Yeah, I think we should do, if you allow me the time to do a 2-minute synopsis of what I think, and I'm gonna try to keep this as toned down as possible because 'cause I've had plenty of rants on Matt LaFleur, and quite frankly, our playoff game has only solidified that view. And what I will tell you, and I softened my stance, right, last week, um, number 1, the fact of the matter is Matt LaFleur isn't the best offensive play caller we can have. I will go on record and say that he is a good coach. He is a good coach in the National Football League. He has his holes, and what we have seen is a major issue with what he has when it becomes crunch time. He is incapable of making the right play call to the point where he actually calls one of the worst scenarios that you can call in those situations. Like, it could not get any worse when you're driving the ball and you need 7. If we get 7 on that last drive, when Love did some great checkouts to different plays, he got some first downs there, and then Dilly, what happens with 3 minutes and 17 seconds left, and all we need is one more first down. We need to get it in the end zone, but we need to get another first down, and he goes to the shotgun inside draw. I'm sorry, it wasn't a zone run. Zone run. A shotgun zone run inside all night. Our success came on those zone pitches outside the tackles. And then he calls what I would tell you is the two worst RPO plays to bubble screens that I've seen. And I understand why it looks good on paper, Dilly, but it doesn't work when you do it twice in a row. Is the run pass option, the RPO, to a bubble screen. It hadn't worked all game. The only time it worked was maybe when a individual A++ play from Golden went into the end zone, but that wasn't because of the play call. And I know that you're trying to get them to use their timeouts, and I understand that you want the clock running, but there's other ways to do it. There's creative ways to do it. Watch the Steelers playing right now. There's other ways to get the ball out. We've been through the McCarthy era where we got a screen on every third play. There was a screen play call on every third play. And you know why that was? Is to keep the clock running and to keep drives going. High percentage passes. And that's what we needed. We needed high percentage. And I agreed that we shouldn't just run it, but we certainly on first down don't go into shotgun and do a zone inside run. What are we doing? Like, it's so predictable. It's
Well,
frustrating. The game management.
and I will say, um, perhaps, I think a valid criticism of LaFleur in the past is he is possibly a beat slow on getting off of certain things. Joe Barry comes to mind, uh, past and present special teams coordinators. But you're right in the fact that because I've been reading up and reviewing and going over stuff. There's a perception that he went ultra conservative in the entire second half, which actually is inaccurate. They were passing, and the offensive line gaffes thwarted it for the three first drives of the second half. But there is, I think why people get that perception, and you were right, it was the 311 mark. I don't know if you were cheating and looking at a play record there, but it is. It seemed like he was conceding when it gets to that point. They're just on that edge of um, giving up a play to burn time or have the other team burn timeouts. He gets a little conservative or maybe a little predictable there. Like he kind of knew it was going to be a little bit of a give up. And um, I'm looking back here. Okay, that one was a short pass to read, but yeah, it's you kind of knew that he was just, let's just run 40 seconds off the clock or force him to take a timeout here because, you know, and maybe part of it is I just have enough confidence in the rest, in my quarterback and the rest of the game plan where and I'm sure he thinks they're going to get 4 yards, but over the entire um, 17 games before that, what's one of the weakest points on the team? The guard and center, the interior line play. So maybe you got to come up with something else, even if it was, and then at the other end of the spectrum, because I know this has upset you sometimes too, is like it goes from ultra aggression, a deep ball out of nowhere, very aggressive to very conservative, and he hasn't found that sweet spot all the way through a game, you know, especially in kind of that 4 minute area, that's that second half of the fourth quarter where you have the lead, like just and maybe part of it is love. There's a play in there he could have run for a first down on one of those drives on 3rd and 5 when we still had the lead. There's just that little bit of missing there. In general, I would say that's what I'm gonna try to bank on a bit of life is it's a little bit. I mean, the whole thing is, and it's always a battle between getting over the hump and, champagne problems. We destroyed them. Some offenses never destroy a team for 2 quarters or 1 quarter or go, for the fact of the matter is completely stymied for 3 drives. I was like, he doesn't adjust and doesn't do whatever. Well, guess what? After that, after looking like we may never move the ball again, we did score a touchdown. We did drive to where we should have made a field goal. We actually, from those points of view, if you make a kick, we we pretty much did enough. And it's hard to do the math, 7 points on the board or extra point and a field goal. Yeah, that's only 4 points, and the Bears would have played it differently. And maybe they would have scored more. You can't just add the 4 at the end or add the 7 at the end. But it definitely changes the complexion of the game if they make that field goal, um, because it puts the Bears under more stress.
Here's the biggest other issue I have, and I know you've got a point here, Dilly, but I just want to step in and add a little bit to this is 2 points. Number one, I don't understand why as a Packer fan, and maybe it's so easy, it's glaring there. I sat at halftime, and if you were within an arm's length or within the tavern that I was at. If you were within the house that I was at, I was telling you that 18 points wasn't enough. That's a terrible spot for the winning team to be, and that's the truth. And here's the deal. If I feel it and you feel it, guess who else feels it? The 53 guys on that team that are playing, and I will point directly to what should have been a pumped up, fired up, step on their throat team that we saw no motivation coming out of halftime. And I'm only going to point at one group of people. Okay. Matt LaFleur tends to lead those people, and that is our coaching staff. We did not have them ready coming out of the tunnel after halftime. I don't know what the hell was said in that locker room. I don't know if anything was said in that locker room. And I don't know if complacency, it certainly looked like that team was a team that expected to win that football game. Not sure why, because we're playing the Bears, who have lived and died. And I'm going to have a rant. Let's come back to my Bears rant before the end of this episode, Dilly. But I will tell you that we need Matt LaFleur to take that next step. I doubt that the brass right now, as long as the brass can get the cost to where it's comfortable for them, that they will make any move on Matt LaFleur. I said that last episode, and I will stick with it. I do not think that Ed Policy and the board of directors or whoever the hell makes the decision, it may be Ed Policy's decision alone. I don't think he has the cojones to make that decision. And this isn't new. This is just not the Audible angle saying this, although we've been saying it, being me, for the last 7 weeks. And now the entire city of Green Bay and the Packer Nation is saying it. But maybe the team isn't. Maybe the team knows better than us. But I just didn't see enough there. We've got to get it over the hump. And there's a lot of what ifs, if this, and if that maybe we should dive into.
Well, I will say that I think what's been announced today, that they're going to be working on an extension. I think that was basically a mutual, totally nothing statement because, yeah, that's the whole point. By the way, he has a year left on his contract, as we've discussed. It all comes down to if, and I heard this earlier, it's actions over words. If they lowball him, he's going to be gone or asked to be gone or fuck it, lame duck me, whatever. If they give him a real offer and then they go back and forth, I think he really wants to stay. I do believe that part of it because why? I don't know what situation you think is better. We talked about some of the other openings. You want to go to the Giants and mess around with that? I mean, maybe that one would be all right, but nobody ever wants to go to New York. You want to go to Atlanta? I don't think there's a situation that would be better where Matt LaFleur is like, I'd like to turn the page. I highly doubt that. But it comes down to if they give him a competitive offer to start and then they iron it out. Let's go through the hypotheticals though, and let's go hypothetical. Let's go let's go the order I said. They get rid of LaFleur. Talk about what you want to see, and I'll even open it up because my instinct is to say if you get rid of LaFleur, I mean, obviously, let's make it a miracle and say we trade him somewhere, which I know is probably fantasy. Those deals are hard to do, but he does have a year left. And somebody is going to miss out on their first two options. and it could be he'd have to agree to it, and then they'd have to work out a contract. That's why it's all too speculative for me. Let's say they fire him. And I'd love to rule out Harbaugh because I would be enraged under this assumption that they're going to say no to paying LaFleur, who hasn't been able to get over the hump, to hire Harbaugh, who hasn't got over the hump since the 2 years after McCarthy got over the hump. We should have still have McCarthy if not getting over the hump for 10 years is a positive. Um, but the fact that they would have to pay him $20 million if it's a money thing with LaFleur, I don't see how you really keep Harbaugh in your fantasy world. But I'm not excluding that. I'm including that. What do you want to see tomorrow morning? LaFleur didn't work out. We've mutually agreed to part ways. What do you want to see in a new regime?
All right. Just because, and this is using the assumption that we have a 3-year window, I'm going to go with what I believe is a 3-year window. I'll go further to win the Super Bowl. That I do believe that we have a 3-year window. I think it's going to be tough to re-sign Parsons. If we get close, maybe he wants to stay, but he's going to try to look at that next contract. He's young enough to do that, and he's going to prove himself in the next 3 years, and he's going to be a hot topic if we can get there. Now, let's assume the easiest path there, Dilly, I say, is we make Hafley, we give Hafley what he's going to look for, which is control. He wants to be a head coaching job. We would have a head coaching job here, and it's the path of least resistance. He's seen how it's been. They're familiar with Hafley. I'm sure they trust Hafley. He's turned around the defense ish. There's some question marks there, but I would ideally like to see Hafley stay, and we get the best offensive coordinator out there that I think, and it's creative. So it's different than what we are. It's similar, and and this is an offensive coordinator that can use weapons and is creative with those weapons. And I would go with McDaniel. The problem with that is I think he's searching. I've heard a couple of things. He is interviewing for head coaches, but he is also looking at offensive coordinator positions. So we have to move quickly. That's why there's some urgency to get this done. Ideally, I would like to see that. Then we have a head coach who has his choice to find that defensive coordinator. I don't need to make that decision for him. Goody doesn't need to make that decision for him. He will find his crony that runs a defense similar to what he was doing, and we've got defensive coordinators, and quite frankly, Hafley could make the calls himself. So maybe we don't need a defensive coordinator, or maybe we just need a defensive coordinator that's willing to be there and help strategize with Hafley. So we've got to get something more unique on offense. McDaniel checks that box. I think he's comfortable in that. I don't know if McDaniel wants to go to a cold climate, but that's only 2.5 months, 2 months worth. So that would be my ideal situation. But Dilly, here's the deal. If Harbaugh wants to come here, and I seriously doubt that, I doubt it because I think he's looking for more power. We've chronicled that well in episodes past. I think he's looking for GM power. We all know that Goody is on a 1-year deal right now as well. He's got 1 year remaining in his deal. So it wouldn't be out of the question for Ed Policy to say, screw it. We're going to blow this thing up. It's a guy that knows how to do it. And quite frankly, Harbaugh has more Super Bowl championships than what our buddy Matt LaFleur has. And I don't think the only thing that concerns me about Hafley is I don't think he's as good as everybody says he is. Our defense wasn't that great. Now, I would like to see his defense with what is Parsons, but that doesn't tell me that I think there's going to be a lot of question marks. And I've taught when we had the episode on the coaches, Hafley's name was not out there as much because of the new coaches that came due. And I'll tell you what, week 8, the wild card game certainly didn't help him much. It didn't help his.
Yeah, I would. This will be rather short because I think that's my best case scenario. Also, would be if they did fire LaFleur, it'd be Hafley and a strong. It doesn't even have to be the most strong. McDaniel's is strong, and I've talked about are the Packers really going to pay big time coordinator money? We don't know. We haven't seen much of that before. That's not always what they do. But if it's a guy from this, I want to keep as much of the offense, new tweak. So I would even be fine with Halfley with, the quarterback's coach who's been waiting in the wings with the Rams or the Niners, that same kind of tree of offense, guys name that we don't know and smarter people than us know. I could probably get by with that. And as you talked about it, and knowing that I agreed with you, the problem strategically, and maybe this is a Carmen Policy's son problem. It is his son, right? Ed. Sometimes I forget his name, or you just want to say Carmen Policy. But his problem is going to be Halfley has got what 3 to 5 to 6 interviews lined up. It's pretty safe bet he's going to get an offer, and he's been relatively high on the list. We don't know if that's warranted or not. But the fact of the matter is the coordinators last year, and I'm going to leave Ben Johnson out of it because he was a guy that had interest for a couple years. He played that well. He stayed with Detroit for an extra period of time and got more coveted by teams and kind of picked his spot. I believe he got 13 mil a year. And let's say Halfley's got 5 interviews. The Tennessee Titans or somebody that's desperate to get a guy that they think is steady, can steady the ship and build a foundation. I don't think he'd get that kind of money, but it might be 10, 11 million. And then you're again, and this has kind of been my whole argument. I just think the Packers would be getting into a scenario where if we believe what they say, and they'd like to keep LaFleur, they'd like to keep him at a reasonable salary that is slightly in their favor. Pull out the old tricks. It's cheaper cost of living in Green Bay. 12 million here is different than 12 million in New York or Los Angeles or any other big metropolitan city. Fine, whatever. But I just think they're going to find themselves if they're priced out on LaFleur, they're going to be priced out on everyone else we'd get excited about. And then you're back to kind of relying on they hit with what is a pretty good coach, which LaFleur did out of nowhere. And I think McCarthy was even kind of a little bit out of nowhere, but those aren't guaranteed hits. Let's get into, I'll start with what I want it to look like if they keep LaFleur. And then one off the list after that. Remind me, I have an off the list question. This episode apparently has an unlimited time slot, but I want offensive line coach gone. Want Stenovich probably gone because I don't know what he does, because I believe he was the offensive line coach, and then to keep him around, they kind of bump him up the food chain to the non-play calling offensive coordinator, which we know Matt LaFleur is the offensive coordinator. So I'd rather, if he's a figurehead, have him coach the offensive line. And maybe he was maybe he took over some of that. Our offensive line play stunk. I've talked about Mike Wall on the Pack a Day podcast. Sometimes he's broken it down a lot more. They put out a hour-long episode today. Go listen to it. I actually haven't listened to it yet, but I do know throughout the year he seemed to articulate some basic things, some fundamental technique things that are the type that a position coach has to instill in training camp, in mini camp, and all that stuff, and prioritize. That's, the buck stops with the head coach, but you got to have guys in place. And I know they've lost some of those guys, position coaches, because they maybe are not competitive financially. Bisaccia, get him out of here. Get him out of here. And spend a little money on a special teams coordinator, or get a young hot phenom. Get anybody, other than Bisaccia, because they also gave him more responsibilities, which was maybe going to assistant head coach. I don't think he's helped LaFleur at all in any aspect of coaching. What do you want it to look like if they keep LaFleur?
Yeah. I think you've hit on all the main points, and here's the deal, Dilly, we can get a very good special teams guy at what we're paying Bisaccia. He came in, and I
Yes.
don't even know what it is, but it's got to be a lot. It's got to be a shit ton because we threw another title on him after last year, and we haven't had good special teams. The problem in the wild card game is we were outcoached on offense, we were outcoached on defense, and we were outcoached in special teams. All three phases, we got our rear ends kicked in the second half. That's where we lost the football game in all three phases. So we've got to have change. I think you're right. The offensive line, even if Banks looked terrible. I don't know what that was. Might be one of the worst free agent gets that we've had all year outside of Hobbs. I saw Hobbs come out today. He got interviewed when they're cleaning out the lockers, and he's talking about how the Green Bay hasn't seen half of me. I will be one of the best defenders on this team next year. Well, you better be, Nate Hobbs, because it can't get any bloody worse than what we saw this year. Holy frights, man. Like it was when you were healthy, it was actually a detriment. It was a positive when you were hurt because we could have Bullard play your dime or nickel package. And he's way better than you, and he's a safety. That's also, by the way, side note, another positive. Our safeties are strong as hell. But anyway, I think we've got to have three significant changes on the coaching staff. And Dilly, I think I texted this to you earlier. I believe that part of the negotiations for LaFleur to stay will be you need to make changes and you need to make changes quick. And here's why Ed Policy would say that. He was on the staff. He was in our organization when Mark Murphy was running it. It took too long to make Barry leave, to make some other folks on that team to pull that trigger. So I agree with you. Offensive coordinator, we need a change. I would love to see play calling to be kind of mixed up in some way, shape, or form. That's well chronicled, so I won't waste people's ears on that. But I think special teams is gone, offensive line gone. I'd like to see a little bit of shakeup on the linebackers coaching because I think we have a lot of talent there and we haven't developed that talent, in my opinion. I think Edgerrin Cooper has all pro written all over him. I think Quay Walker, as long as we sign him, he's an unrestricted free agent. He could walk. That's going to be costly because he played a lot of football. He's got a lot of tape, and it's pretty good tape. He can't cover his own shadow, but he can definitely run stop. And he's quick to get to the line, but or to the quarterback. I think that you've chronicled it well. Here's the deal, Green Bay. Quit hoping that Matt LaFleur is gone until we see it. And you stated it well. I'll believe it when you see it if he comes in because I think there's a lot of question marks inside that conference room that they're meeting in. Could be at least currently, if not early tomorrow, we'll hear about it, or at some point tomorrow. I hope we hear about it for our organization's sake. So that's got to be some changes if he stays.
Maybe part of what he said, when he met with policy, and I'm glad he's meeting with policy, um, maybe part of, the basic outline of questions was, well, what changes do you see, that you'd like to make? And maybe he said, because I mean, we know we have a direct line to 1265. Maybe he said, yeah, Bisaccia gone. Give me a damn budget for a new offensive line coach. And Stenovich, I guess Stenovich would be the third out of the three. Like, I'd maybe some coaches changes. If they keep Stenovich as a figurehead and maybe his role got split with the horrible offensive line play by Packer standards. Maybe he got split up late in the year and that negatively affected him. But he might have gone in with the changes that helped policy to say, yes, okay, so I'm not going to have to fight you on these. But the reason why I say I'm glad he was talking to policy, because I'm not sure I'm convinced on our friend Gutenkunst. Back in the olden days, we had Russ Ball, we had Goody, and we had Elliot Wolf. That's a grandson of Ron Wolf, right? I think it's grandson. He was in the building. He was in consideration, and I think Rogers didn't like Gutenkust. Now Rogers was, entering his difficult phase, um, on the football field. I don't think he's difficult anywhere else. Um, just want to make it clear to the listeners. But, we went with Goody, and he's had, maybe he's a little bit like LaFleur. He's great, but the bad stuff's bad. And some of it's great, pulled off the Parsons deal. Maybe that was more policy telling him to get it done. But, you know, we went into 2 seasons with huge questions at cornerback. And I don't know, what could contribute to a team that gives up leads and can't seem to slam the door? Well, when Parsons is healthy, he's the closer. You have an extreme pass rush advantage. Those corners do all right. But we don't have good corners, and we didn't draft any. That's the weirdest thing of all the old draft and develop Packers. Where the hell are these guys? Where's our third or fourth round pick from a couple years ago? Other positions, we have a couple of guys that you think, wow, one of them's going to work out. Stockpile the defensive backs. Who made the decision at center? Because that's not just a coaching decision. Maybe the input from the coaching staff is we think Jenkins can do it, but ultimately it's his decision to go with Banks, and because they think guard is a more valuable position than retaining a center at a similar dollar amount instead of, it's. So I have questions about Goody. I'm not.
Well,
If you get rid of
let me take
LaFleur,
a
please get rid of Gutenkunst, and I'm serious. Just do the whole shebang.
yeah, I'm not against that, Dilly, but I think that the rope should be a little longer for Goody. I really do. And the proof is in, I think what Goody has done, and you can't build a team over time at all positions at once. It just doesn't work. So I do think if you look at it, he went strategically. He's gone strategically. He just hasn't gotten to cornerbacks yet. He started with the defensive line, Luke Van Ness, Devontae Wyatt. Those are key points on our defensive line. Hey, you can't control, and neither can Matt LaFleur. You can't control injuries. And both of those guys were injured for an extended period of time this year. I think Luke Van Ness is then now coming into his own. I'm really looking forward to year 3 next year for him. I think he's going to blossom. I think his play actually makes Enagbare a little bit expendable. We don't have to spend big money, as you've chronicled in earlier episodes. But Dilly, our two linebackers are solid. He hit on Edgerrin Cooper. Cooper is our linebacker he actually makes Quay Walker less important to keep. Right? Like, we should keep Quay Walker. I would like to do that. And then you look at our 3 safeties. He put priority on the safeties. He went and got Xavier McKinney, who's another All-Pro. He's playing in the Pro Bowl. We've got Williams. We got Bullard. He's got great position players. And then what we have on the offensive side. He went and got Jacobs. That was a splash. He went and got Parsons. That's a splash. We've got the wide receiving core. He hit on Watson. He hit on Golden. He hit on Reed. He hit on Dobbs. He's hit more than he's missed. And some of those missed guys we probably don't know. And there's defensive ends. There's a handful of those guys that are waiting to come up that we know about. Cox is playing. We got Oliver, who I was pissed that was a coach's decision to sit. And you're right. Who else do you sit in front of him? I get it. But I will tell you, I think Goody's got a longer leash than what Matt LaFleur does, because here's the deal, man. You got to get to it. Matt LaFleur has won in his 7 years he's made the playoffs because of 2 reasons. Number one reason is A-Rod.
Don't say it. Don't say it. Do not say it.
Yes, he was.
Don't say it.
Don't say
it.
Fact.
Don't say it.
Aaron Rodgers was an
off the
MVP.
podcast.
No way. Aaron Rodgers was an MVP
He created the
in
MVP.
20 and what?
Yeah, he rejuvenated a former MVP candidate who had not been anywhere near that for 2 years.
That's fine. That so what? He did it, but that's why he got to the playoffs. That wasn't because of his play calling. That wasn't because of his game management, which is the errors. Then you could put all the credit from Love right to him. That's Matt LaFleur. He's developed Jordan Love, and I doubt it. Jordan Love's developed on his own. He was a good quarterback. Aaron Rodgers was a good quarterback before, and he was a great quarterback after. He was great before and great after. And it wasn't because of Matt LaFleur. Maybe there's a new energy because of Matt LaFleur came in. Fine. The other 3 playoff wins reasons that we're in is because the NFL changed the rules. Bottom line, we're not in this year, last year, or the year before if 6 teams make the playoffs. And I don't care what you say. That's the bottom line. We're the 7th seed. We're not in the playoffs in the years prior to that. And it's a different question. Even if you do say that Matt LaFleur was the reason that Aaron Rodgers was good those last 2 MVP seasons, I would tell you that Matt LaFleur is no longer here, and it's not a conversation if we don't make the playoffs in the last 3 years in the 7th seed. It's an easy decision today.
Well, in the interest of time for our viewers, we're not going to go back and re-engineer how the seasons would have gone if we knew that there was not a 7th playoff spot, because we have multiple games, including ones we lament of losing in week 18 or week 17, because we're not playing, we have a spot clinched or not, this year's obviously different. Both games are probably different. You make different decisions with injuries. So I don't want to rehash whether or not the 7th seed or the 6th seed. I mean, in 1980s, none of these teams would have made it, but I do take umbrage with this, take credit away from, and I don't want to paint it like you're taking an extreme stance, but the Packers were not in good shape when Matt LaFleur came in, and that includes Rodgers' play. And frankly, he navigated a situation with a quarterback that is any longtime superstar veteran quarterback. If you're coming in and trying to get him to do different things with motion and a different style of offense, it's a tricky thing to navigate. And he was very successful in that and had very successful years with Rodgers, when a lot of people kind of thought he was on the way out and done already. He had back-to-back years of like 26 touchdowns, 25 touchdowns, not not electric stuff. And then he managed the transition of to Jordan Love in a certain scenario. And I just think it's almost like he had 2 different careers here, with the second one entering its 4th year now, after what people, it was a soft rebuild because it was successful, because we were good enough to pull off a soft rebuild. But it was on the precipice of, if it didn't look okay with Love, it was, Love's not coming back. We're in the tank, we're starting from scratch. And if with a different coach, it might have been that. I mean, that's actually sometimes a criticism of Love I hear, is that it's he doesn't create plays. He's throwing, the scheme is throwing to wide open guys. So I would just like the record to reflect that it's kind of like he had 2 different careers here. One, inheriting a team that was winding down from their window, and he got some out of that. He maximized Rodgers. Rodgers, lit it up again, and we got close within. And then it was a start over, which became a soft reboot into some opportunities in the playoffs and winning a playoff game.
Can I ask it in a different way? I want your honest opinion, Dilly. Real quick,
Yeah.
real quick. Let me ask it in a different way. I'm going to give you what he's done in the last 4 years, and I want you to be honest in the opinion. I just want to ask it in a different way, because I will. Let's say he's a great quarterback whisperer, and he got everything out of Aaron Rodgers, and that was because of Matt LaFleur. Can't argue that. Don't know it. I agree with you. There is an angle, but the last 4 years, and tell me if you're going to be all things the same, if this is a coach that you want to be, knowing the talent that we have on the Packers. 3rd place in the NFC North, missed the playoffs. 2nd place, NFC North, losing the division round. That was the year that we went down to Dallas and we kicked the shit out of them in the wild card game. 3rd place in the NFC North the next year, lost in the wild card round. This year, again, 3rd place in the NFC North, lost in the wild card game. Is that a resume that would say, yes, re-sign him today? If you're Ed Policy, you're like, you know what? In the last 4 seasons, Matt LaFleur, you've shown me enough. Here's $12 million in a 4-year contract. If you're Ed Policy, is that enough?
Yeah. Yeah, and it is, because if you look at there's just a different way of doing things, and this does open it up to the wider NFL. I mean, if you go before this year, who were the two greatest coaches in the NFC North and the greatest, you know, teams? The speaking of quarterback whisperer, it's Detroit and Minnesota, and I think both those third place finishes were probably Detroit, Minnesota. Let's I'm trying to check the 2023 reference section. Oh, that was second place. Um, you know,
Be last
this
year,
is
so it was Minnesota before us. It was
a
Minnesota. It was
steady,
Minnesota.
yeah, third place, missed the playoffs. Vikings won that year. Was that Kevin O'Connell? I don't know. Who gives a shit? I'm gonna. I would just say that when you look across the NFL, one of the things that has kept the Packers the way they are, and yes, we did butt Rodgers up against the Tom Brady era, which, granted, we didn't play them because we didn't make the Super Bowl the same year as them, but we didn't get over the hump with McCartney. McCartney, my old college roommate, Tom McCartney, coach of the Packers. McCarthy. We have continuity of good play, and you know it is the we follow the rules in the NFL. So if you're a wild card, you're a wild card. I just don't think I wouldn't rather be in the Vikings cash strapped, no quarterback, even though they have a quarterback whisperer coach, or the Lions with, you know, continually no defense. I just, I would keep them because, and this is getting on too long of a discussion. We need to move on. That's the one promise we have to make. When the Packers make their decision, we're going to move on from this for a couple of years. And they can just let us know if they're going to blow it up at some point. But if he signs an extension, I don't want to spend a lot more time on it for the time being. But um, yes, I would take him in part because I don't trust anybody else. And the point about the greater NFL, and you touched on it briefly, is some of the mistakes McCarthy is doing. Fucking a LaFleur that we get all over LaFleur on. I don't see it out there in the NFL. That's why I'm not sure there's a candidate out there. We watched, I think you were referencing the Eagles and Philadelphia game. They're almost every playoff game you watched. I believe Jacksonville did it. Anyway, somebody proved me wrong. There's guys going for it on fourth down and they miss. They're kicking field goals when they're down 4 late in the game. You should go for it at that point. They're missing extra points. They're missing field goals. Ben Johnson, if they wouldn't have had, again, a historic comeback, a tip to him for rallying the boys and confusing Rasheed Walker and the rest of the offensive line into a total abysmal mess, congrats. But if it turns McManus makes his kick, we're talking about the dumbest coach of all time in the first half. Oh, it's fourth down. The game is tied at 0. I'm in my own territory. Let's go. We're going to do a tight end pass. We're going to do all this other dumb shit. And he looks stupid. So we judge it, by the final score. Okay, they won. But it was razor thin to being, yep, old Ben Johnson trying to do his Dan Campbell trick. It's going to run out sometime. And we've seen this before, and I don't know if there's a team out there that's playing 85% correct calls. I mean, everybody loves Jim Harbaugh. What the hell happened to the Chargers? They couldn't block anybody. They went for it on fourth down. I know they did. They didn't kick a field goal.
Yeah, I won't argue that the case that the state of the NFL is to maybe go against analytics, or the analytics have gone towards 4 downs on every drive. I mean, you're absolutely right with Ben Johnson. I mean, the Bears were 1 for 5 on fourth down, I think, something ridiculous, maybe even been worse than that. I don't even know, and they didn't make that one until the fourth quarter, third or fourth quarter. So I agree with that. I mean, my question is my issue is not necessarily with the fourth down calls with Matt LaFleur. It's just the body of work I don't like. But we can agree to disagree, and quite frankly, time will tell on what the Packers do. We can say what we want here on the Audible Angle, and we can agree to disagree on what to do. But when the decision comes down, we can talk about the decision and move on, because that's what we're going to deal with in the next 3 to 4 years. I'm sure it's going to be a 4-year contract.
Unless they don't fire Bisaccia, then we'll talk about that every single week. That'll be a new segment on every episode. What the hell is going on? What did this guy do to half the board members? What kind of blackmail does he have on the Packers board members? How much stock did he buy in the stock sale? Maybe he's a controlling stock owner. Herbs, are we
Agree, man.
wrapped on the current state of Packers with the limited information we have?
I think we're wrapped, man. I think maybe we'll mention that once the news comes down. I think it'll be a footnote and some playoff updates that we have throughout the coming weeks, the Super Bowl, whatever that is. But I believe that decision is now reserved for a footnote on another episode.
Yes, sir. And we obviously have, as we record, we got the Texans 7, our friend Aaron Rodgers 6. They're starting off the second half, and then we got to break down the new football matchups and determine who we're pulling for. Obviously our friend Rodgers, pulling for him. I think we talked about the Bills, as get one finally for the Bills. And I'll do a little teaser for our future playoff matchup breakdown. As unbiased analyst, podcaster, above worst in the world podcast, I'm regrettably, initial reports are I'm feeling optimistic about the Bears' chances this week because of my thoughts on the Rams playing outdoors in shitty weather in the playoffs in the cold. We've seen it, and it hasn't worked out. It's further analysis required, but I'm working towards picking the Bears there. Teaser.
Good episode, fella. I think we hashed out absolutely nothing, but we've got there. In
Yeah,
1 hour in a record.
we probably should have just gone 17 minutes of full rage instead of just thinking. I think probably everybody's favorite part is us yelling over each other there for 30 seconds. But see you soon.
Later.